Hey guys, today's DIY project is going to be a simple electric fence to keep deer out of your garden, or in this case, my vineyard. If you like projects like this, make sure to click the subscribe button below. So to do a project like this, you really don't need a lot. You probably need about, say $100 worth of equipment, which is way less than if you were to build a more substantial fence to try to keep deer or other critters out of your garden. The first thing you're going to need is a fence charger, and the one that I used is a really small unit because, I mean, this vineyard here is 25 by 65 feet, so it's really just not that big. You're going to need a ground rod, and this is really important and something you don't really want to skimp on. So this is a 6-foot ground rod. I got this one at Tractor Supply, but I'll put a link to all the things that I used so you can buy them on Amazon, or just so you kind of know exactly what I'm talking about. At the end of your ground rod, you're going to need a clamp to clamp your ground wire to. Some other things you're going to need are some galvanized wire. I use 17 gauge. Some people use aluminum wire, but it's just a little bit easier to break if a deer were to, walk right into the thing. You're going to need a little bit of insulated wire for the area close to your fence charger. You're going to need some sort of post, and in my case I'm using fiberglass posts, but you could use wood posts, you could use steel posts. You're going to need an insulator to put on those posts. Now if you're using a fiberglass post, you don't necessarily need an insulator because the post is insulated, but if you're using wood posts or steel posts, you're definitely going to need an insulator. And what I used are these simple little screw-on style clamp-on insulators, which, like I said, I don't necessarily need. I could use those little, spring-style steel clamps, but this just worked out to be a good deal, so it's what I used. There are some optional things that you could use on a fence like this just to make your life a little bit easier. I want to be able to mow the rows of my fence, so on each end of the fence I'm going to put a handle. It's just a plastic-covered electric fence handle. So you can disconnect the fence, run the mower through, and then reconnect it. Or if I just want to come in here and prune the vines, check out how things are going, I want to be able to just quickly, unclip and clip that thing back on. You may want some little warning signs because, if one of your neighbors accidentally bumps your fence, it's probably not going to feel real good. It's not dangerous, but it's not a pleasant thing to touch an electric fence. You may want a ratchet to keep your wire tight. You may even want a spring to also kind of keep that wire kind of tight. Now this is not a super permanent style fence, so if I was using huge wood posts like this, I would go all in and go all crazy, but you don't necessarily need all that stuff for just a little simple, backyard style fence. Something else you might want if it's in a neighborhood is a timer, because the deer are going to most likely attack your garden at nighttime, so you could easily put a timer on that fence charger so the charger's only on, say, from an hour before sunset to an hour after sunrise, and you're going to have pretty good success with something like that. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started with this project. First thing we're going to do is pound the ground rod in, and it just rained a ton, so this is going to be a lot easier. And just make sure you don't hit a sewer line or something with it. Just know where that stuff is. Now we'll just go around and pound in all our posts, and these fiberglass posts came with a little post pounder adapter so you don't split the fiberglass. And I'll put them about a foot. These are 5-foot posts. I'll put them about 1.5 feet into the ground. And it's not that important here to be perfect. Now I've got all the posts pounded in, and I've got an insulator on each post. So all I have to do is walk around, feed the wire through each of the insulators. You'll notice that I put the corner posts in at an angle. So as everything snugs up, the post will bend up and kind of hold everything, sort of snug. So over here, there's a spot where my wire was contacting my gutter. And that's no good. You don't want it touching anything, whether it be a gutter or a tree or a post. So it's nice to have a couple of these style insulators laying around, the kind that you would screw into a post, so you can just insulate it in the event that that happens. Now that I've got my fence all strung up, I've just got to wire up my fence charger, and I've got a couple chargers to choose from here. Originally I hooked up this little 2-mile unit from Zareba, and I'm actually going to switch that out for a little bit bigger one. This is I think it's a 6-mile range from Gallagher. It's the M100, or they call it the Wrangler also, and it has a 1 joule output, which should be good for deer in your backyard. I don't think I would necessarily want to use it for deer in a situation where you might have some, grass and things contacting the fence, maybe disrupting your circuit. This is a totally fine little unit, but I would say maybe it's a little bit better for things like woodchucks and rabbits and, keeping chicken in place. So I put a couple screws in my wall here, and I'm just gonna mount this on the wall. And of course, got it unplugged because I don't want to accidentally touch these 2 terminals when it's plugged, or I'll just get a real nice little jolt. And I've already taken my high voltage fence wire here and just kind of strip the end off and put a little bend in it so I can hook it up. And I'm going to go ahead and hook my ground side up to the ground terminal on the charger. And then my hot wire, which I marked with the sticker here. And you really want to use this high voltage stuff with the good insulation, or you'll have some voltage leakage, which would kind of act similar to if you had your fence touching a tree or something, and just kind of shorting out a little bit and just kind of reduce the power output. And then I'll just plug it in and I'll show you how I've hooked everything up outside. And you can see a little indicator light here that gives a little blink every time it pulses. For the fence wire, I've basically just twisted it around the fence here, and I put a little bend in the end just to try to make it a little bit less likely for this thing to kind of undo itself. And then the ground is just clamped with my big ground clamp here. So this clamps onto your ground post, and then it's got a screw terminal to clamp your high voltage wire onto. And the way that I've terminated my fence wires is, instead of actually tying them together to make a complete loop, I've basically taken my final insulator and wrapped one end of the wire around one side and the other end around the other side, and I'll show you why I did that. So about 10 feet away from where I've got the wire hooked up in that final insulator is my one handle to get in and out of the fence. And because I've got it split at the end there, what's cool is if I unhook this, it now disconnects all of the entire fence except for this like 10 feet of wire that's running over to where everything's hooked up there. So I can come in here and I can prune the vineyard without really having to worry about, tiptoeing around the fence wire. And now the fence is all done. I'm gonna go ahead and just give the wire a little touch. And what's going to happen is you're going to think that your fence isn't working, but what's happening is I've got these boots on. They've got big rubber soles. So if you touch it now, it gives you just a little tiny tingle. Now if I untie my shoelace and let my shoelace touch the ground, the tingle about quadruples. And if I take my boots off and and go in my bare feet, you will definitely get a jolt. And really, I mean, if you're troubleshooting and if it's not working as well as you hoped, it's most likely going to come down to, you know, either your ground rod's not long enough or good enough, or maybe there's a short somewhere where, you know, your wire is touching, like my gutter back there, or it's touching a tree or something. So you really want to watch for those things as you're finishing this up. But it's really pretty simple project. Hopefully this helped you out. If you have any questions, just post them in the comments and I'll try to do my best to answer them for you. Thanks for watching.